Aloha, I'm Brickwood Galutaria. Welcome to Kupuna Power, a show for and about seniors. Throughout the show, we'll be displaying the senior helpline phone number, 768-7700. It's manned by the staff of the City and County Elderly Affairs Division between 7:45 a.m. to 4:15 p.m., and they can refer you to government agencies and support services that specialize in the health, safety, and well-being of our kupuna. Today, we're continuing our discussion about long-term care with Nancy Moser from the Executive Office on Aging. Previously, Nancy described some of the support services that the state offers to kupuna with limited resources, depending on your resources and whether you have a long-term care plan of your own. Well, I'm one of those who do not have a long-term care plan. Here to continue discussion of long-term care is Nancy Moser from the Executive Office on Aging, and she's going to guide me in making my own long-term care plan. Nancy, aloha, welcome to Kupuna Power again. I don't have a long-term care plan, but if I did, well, actually I'd be calling you. And if you were going to do an assessment on me, what would be the first question you'd be asking?
Okay, we'll go to the first question first. Let me point out that if you were going to make a long-term care plan, you probably wouldn't be calling me myself, but I help other folks throughout the state figure out how they will, at the counties, when they answer the phone, will help you. So yeah, you won't be speaking to me, but yeah, you'll be speaking to them. That's great. So anybody that calls can do that. So my first question for you is, you're thinking ahead of time, right? So you don't need your long-term supports and services right now. No, you can drive and you can,
Yeah.
But maybe you're thinking in the future that there are things you might not be able to do.
And it might be not that far away, too.
Yeah, you never know.
So
could be tomorrow. You never know.
You never know. So, okay, my knee's still working. everything's kind of intact right now, but what
maybe
am I looking at?
Maybe go through changes. But even then, when in the future, and even today, you might want to think about what's a good day for you? What do you want to have preserved, even if you face challenges that you still want to have in your life?
Well, if the guy in the mirror is looking back, that's a good start.
Yeah,
right? And then, of course, a good day would be, hey, I can go play a round of golf, maybe go down to the surf and get in the water. And
fantastic.
Those things.
So maybe we can even preserve that in the future when you would come into needing long-term supports and services. Or maybe we can find something close to that you'll be able to do that would give you the same satisfaction.
You mean something that actually makes my golf better?
That's something that makes your life better,
my life
right?
better. Okay.
Yeah, it makes you enjoy life, right?
Okay, very good.
And then we got to think about, okay, what would be a bad day for you? And you'd probably best answer that question at the time you need long-term supports. What's going on that would be, a not great day for you.
Okay.
But it sounds like, being able to golf, being able to surf, be active is important to you. And you want to preserve that
as long as I possibly can.
Yeah, and that might change a little bit on how it is. Do you walk? Do you ride a cart? Those kind of things might come into play. So we got to think about, first of all, let's look at a big picture and think about who's important to you, who's in your support network. Because first we're going to get our whole support network involved. Yeah, if any one of us, you in this situation making your plan, were to face a challenge, you couldn't do the things you used to do anymore.
Yeah.
So you think about who are the people that are most important to you.
Well, my family.
Yeah.
My family. I want to watch my grandchildren grow, and I don't want to be a burden to them.
Right.
Over time, I want to actually become and continue to be a big part of their lives, without dragging them down. And how do I do that?
Yeah, and maybe they're going to be able to provide some support to you, and at the same time, I hear what you're saying, that you don't want to drag them down, and you don't want to be.
Sure.
But that's so common, but yet, the greatest source of support that we all have as a society is actually our families, because when we look at who provides the support to older adults, it's basically our family caregivers that do the largest part of it, even just as part of the family network. But oftentimes we need more. We need to go beyond that. We also need to make sure that they can keep doing that, because we don't want to burn them out, right, to where our family cannot handle it anymore because our needs are great.
So there are state and city services that can help my family help me?
Yeah, even for family caregivers, support to family caregivers can be part of to help them keep doing what they're doing to keep you going strong. It might be support groups, it might be training, it might be time off for somebody else to do something like, say, in the future you can't drive anymore, say, in your plan. Maybe you need to plan for if you weren't able to drive, how would you get around? Maybe your kids would help you. Maybe you need some other types of supports to help you.
Is there a like a Kupuna concierge service that I can call that maybe can help me with my long-term plan, or is it just an individual thing? I just got to do all of the research myself.
Is there a concierge service? Well, that's a great question, and there are folks who help people do plans. And yeah, through the senior helpline, for instance, then you can get in touch with those kinds of services. And, here we're talking about those things right now a little bit. You know?
I don't want to get there and start to think about it, right?
Yeah, you're trying to think ahead.
Right about now. So at the end of the day, I'm 59 years of age.
Right.
And I should have a plan already. Is that?
Well, I think you should know where you go to find out the information and what the resources are that will apply at the time you need it. And for some folks, a long-term care plan, they're thinking, I need insurance to cover the costs of long-term care, and that might be private insurance.
Yeah,
or that might be. Yeah.
What if my resources are limited?
Yeah.
Who can I turn to?
Yeah. Then, as we said, as you pointed out, we have some state-funded, county-funded, and federal-funded public funds that provide certain kinds of supports, like Kupuna care or those kinds of things that are supports that help people remain at home, even though they have challenges. It might be going to be able to go to an adult daycare and be around with other people.
Well, thank you for being my Kupuna concierge today. Nancy's been with us for the past 2 shows, and she's demystifying the long-term care planning process for me and for you. And as you've made clear, it's never too late to think about long-term care plans. Mahalo nui loa. Okay, everybody, thank you to Nancy. This is Kupuna Power. Up next, Kupuna Power introduces you to another of the Honpa Hongwangji 2014 Living Treasures. But first, see if you know the answer to this Senior Moment trivia question. What popular Oahu landmark is sometimes referred to as Mokulii?
The Honpa Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii is proud to present the 2014 Living Treasures of Hawaii. Art and Rin Kimura. Art and Rin Kimura firmly believe that the responsibility of educators extend well beyond classroom walls. They understand the impressionable qualities of their young students.
I feel very fortunate that we are sought for our opinion on how we see the trends and how we feel that problems need to be addressed. And education and the delivery of education to our children has to adjust big time so that our children are prepared for their futures. One of the big ways of preparing children for their futures is to allow them to be open-minded and curious about what the world has to offer to them.
Art and Rin Kimura explain why we all should include science as part of our greater consciousness.
The science world and the social world that are keenly important to all of us if we want a better life for ourselves and our neighbors. You have to understand the science behind waste, behind air pollution, over-consuming, ocean safety, ocean acidification, all those things that are real problems for today and our future. And then you have to also tie that to the social world. What's going on politically, economically, how ethical are we in our daily living, in our decision making as public people or private people. So education, again, is, to me, in a nutshell, the key for each person to provide themselves and the people they love with a better life. I think it's so important to integrate all that we can as learners.
One evolutionary aspect of education that has come just recently is the whole issue of education for the human-made world. The question becomes, when we all turn on the faucet, do we know where the water came from? How does it get clean? When you turn a light switch on, how does it work? Why does the light turn on? So this whole question, we live 99% of our time in the human-made world, and yet how much of our education is directed toward making us understand how to live effectively in a human-made world, where many consumer products today are made by machines. We're not relying on the human to actually make the product. And so we need to understand that. And in order to better our planet, a better understanding of that would really help everyone.
Art Kimura rises up to the challenge of doing things right the first time.
We cannot change the world, but we can have an influence of maybe one student, one teacher at a time, and in turn they will make an impact on many others, a geometric impact. We tend to use a Japanese term on our business cards and so forth called ichigo ichie. Basically, we refer to that as one opportunity, one chance in a lifetime, never to be repeated again. And therefore, if we all feel that way, that every time we meet someone, that's the one time we can make a difference in their life, if we do it right, then I think we've done our job.
Art and Rin Kimura provide a solid foundation for the youth of Hawaii to create a better future for all of us.
Aloha. In 1984, when I applied for the NASA Teacher in Space project that would select a teacher to fly on a space shuttle, I wrote in my application, "I have always believed that to see the Earth from afar would be the most humbling of all human experiences. Our self-centeredness in our dealing with one another, with other people, and with other countries would seem irrelevant when compared to our insignificance in the infinity of space. This unexpected honor is much more humbling. To be in this circle of honorees, past and present, each of whom has touched our community in such amazing ways. On behalf of Rin and myself, our family, and the many hundreds of colleagues who have journeyed with us in our voyages to try and inspire the next generation of explorers, thank you to the Hompa Honganji Mission of Hawaii, the Living Treasures of Hawaii Selection Committee, Representative Mark Nakashima, who submitted the nomination, and the many colleagues who wrote letters of testimony and support. Especially want to thank Rin, my wife, my co-pilot, my friend in life, has always been my greatest supporter, my harshest critic, a model of of someone who constantly shows me through her actions of always helping others, the mother of 2 wonderful sons and their wives, a grandmother to 3 loving grandchildren, and a dedicated caregiver for my 93-year-old mother. Rin has never denied my seeking my dreams. Our family supported us in our work with thousands in our community around the world, which have resulted in experiences no one could have imagined. Our parents advised us that education could lead us to a limitless future and that helping others should be the cornerstone of our life work. We thank them for their guidance and support. We are so touched to see in the audience those representing our life's work, family and friends, colleagues from McKinley High School and Hompa Honganji Mission School, teachers from our Future Flight Hawaii Summer Space Camp, mentors and collaborators from the many robotics programs, and our NASA Hawaii Space Grant Consortium leadership team who have steadfastly supported our goals and our work. Everything we do is dependent on hundreds of volunteers who take our simple ideas and make them spectacular. We are so privileged to work with all of them. Rene and I are the most fortunate of all educators. We gaze into the eyes of thousands of young people during our family science nights, our astronaut recognition days, our global science education summits with other countries, and the many robotics tournaments. We see the excited glimmer in their faces of their hopes and dreams as they aspire for a future yet to be defined. How do we prepare them for jobs that have not yet been imagined, or for a world that will be unlike any in all of human history? As noted in the video, Rin and I have used the famous Japanese term ichigo ichie, coined by a famous Japanese tea master, as our daily practice in life. It refers to the idea that each experience can be appreciated only once in a lifetime, that every encounter is treasured and unrepeatable. So too is this gathering another example of ichigo ichie. Thank you for this great honor bestowed on us, which we would like to share equally with all who have allowed us the opportunity to work in education. Rin and I love to share science wherever we go to create curiosity, in schools, on the playground, even in trains in Japan. Do you know how astronauts use the bathroom in space? It brings some curious thoughts to young people. We'd like to share a bit of science with you, so if you could please stop by table 44. We have a pair of diffraction fireworks glasses for you. You will be amazed to see what the lights in this room look like, and through this simple tool, we hope it will light up your life as well. All that we do today is a legacy of the Space Shuttle Challenger. As I told thousands of people, if Challenger had flown successfully on that cold morning in 1986, Rin and I would not be standing here today. All that we have done since 1986 has been part of the continuing educational legacy of the Space Shuttle Challenger and its crew. Although my dreams of flying in space will not be fulfilled, space has taken me on journeys that we could not have imagined possible. The people we work with are much more exhilarating than any voyage into space. Mahalo to all of you who have been part of our journey, the ultimate field trip in life. Thank you.
Good job, Art. First of all, Mark Nita, thank you so much for that beautiful video. When Auntie heard of our award, the first thing she said, and then later others as well, was, "Your parents would be so proud." And that is the absolute truth. From Kolohe kid, growing up in a plantation town, to this day, I would never have imagined me among these honorees. But my parents would be so proud, and I am grateful to them. My dad expected truth and discipline, and my mom, generosity toward others. They gave me the freedom and strength to speak my mind, but to be ready to face the consequences. From their faith in me, I have been able to live my life truthfully and gratefully, beginning with Mark Nakashima, who nominated us, Art, our children, our precious grandchildren, our ohana, all the wise and kind elders who guided me, whom I remember dearly, some of whom are here today, and friends who have supported us from day one. You know who you are. My humble thanks and aloha.
What popular Oahu landmark is sometimes referred to as Mokulii? Mokulii is more commonly known as Chinaman's Hat. Coming up, Kupuna Power went to the recent HCBS conference in Honolulu to learn about trends in home and community-based services. But first, we have another senior moment, this one to test your knowledge of local geography. What is Mount Kaala recognized for?
So the National Alzheimer's Project Act was signed into law in January of 2011 by President Obama, and it essentially requests that the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kathleen Sebelius, develop a national plan for Alzheimer's disease in this country. And that was done, and the first plan was released in May of 2012. The primary goal of the first plan to address Alzheimer's disease in this country really states that we are going to treat and hopefully prevent Alzheimer's disease by 2025. Well, the year 2025 was actually debated quite a bit because on the one hand, it's more than a decade away, and we're concerned about people who have Alzheimer's disease right now. On the other hand, if we're talking about treating and preventing the disease, we have to be realistic. That is, to get a new drug on the market, demonstrated to be effective, will take several years. So we felt that 2025 was in fact a compromise between those 2 points. Most of the major diseases in the United States have sizable research budgets from the federal government. So for example, cancer has a $6 billion research budget. Cardiovascular disease is $2 to $3 billion a year. HIV/AIDS is $3 billion a year, and even diabetes is a little bit more than $1 billion a year. Those disorders have been successful with regard to reducing the death rates due to them. However, Alzheimer's disease has an annual research budget of less than $500 million a year, and the death rates are climbing with Alzheimer's disease. So we're hopeful that by an infusion of additional funds for research purposes, that in fact will have an impact on the death rate for Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is not just a United States phenomenon, but in fact is a global disease. Virtually every country, both developed and developing countries, are experiencing a crisis with regard to the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease. That is, the number of people who have the disease is increasing at an alarming rate, primarily because the greatest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease is age, and all societies are aging. We believe that it's important to really diagnose people as early as possible. At this point in time, of course, that means so that we can educate them, we can help them with planning for the future. Ultimately, of course, an early identification of the diagnosis will be critical in intervening. Many drugs, therapies are under development right now, which are called disease-modifying therapies, that hopefully will actually have an impact on the underlying biologic process. Therefore, we think the earlier we intervene, the better we will be able to treat these people and hopefully prevent the cognitive impairment that's likely to ensue. Right now, when we make the diagnosis of somebody with dementia due to Alzheimer's disease or mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's disease, we recommend several lifestyle changes. For example, aerobic exercise. It's very important for people to exercise on a regular basis. A great deal of evidence is accumulating that, in fact, these individuals may be able to postpone cognitive impairment. A second factor is intellectual exercise. So we recommend that people really stay involved in intellectual activities, usually something that they enjoy. We prefer to have them actually get engaged in it rather than doing like 10 crossword puzzles a day because I have to, like going to the mental gym. But we'd rather have them engage in something in which they're really interested. Thirdly, we ask people to stay involved in their social networks. That is, we really want them to stay involved in their family and friends. And in spite of the fact there may be a tendency to withdraw, I think it's important for them to stay connected. And then finally, with regard to diet, there's nothing magical in the diet that will prevent Alzheimer's disease, but generally we recommend a good heart-healthy diet. What's good for the heart is good for the brain. I think Hawaii has made great steps recently in developing a plan for Alzheimer's disease. The fact that they did it is a major step forward. And I think the fact that Hawaii has such a unique population here, one in terms of aging, Secondly, in terms of ethnic diversity, that they have a unique opportunity to study the situation as well as treat these individuals who are aging in place. I think most of the work that is going on in the field right now with respect to early identification, the use of biomarkers to predict who's going to develop Alzheimer's dementia in the future is really the most exciting way to go right now. I think that once we are able to characterize people with perhaps a risk score, meaning that at age 55, you have a thus and so probability of developing cognitive impairment by age 70. If we have those figures, we can then graft on these therapies that are designed to alter the underlying biologic process and really slow down the development of cognitive impairment and maybe even prevent it altogether. In my own family, my grandmother lived into her 90s and likely became impaired before she passed away. So, but you live around it all the time. Many of the other family members, friends, you see when a person reaches age 85, the likelihood that they're going to have some cognitive impairment is maybe 1 in 3 to 1 in 2. So it's very, very prevalent as people age. We sometimes confuse the terms dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Dementia generally refers to the fact that a person is not remembering as well as they formerly did, they're not thinking as clearly, and that's affecting their daily function. So that's dementia. Now, the next question we ask is what's causing the dementia? And here's where Alzheimer's disease comes into play, because Alzheimer's disease is the leading cause of dementia in aging. So perhaps 50 to 60, 70% of all people with dementia in their 70s and 80s will have Alzheimer's disease either as the cause or as a component in the process. Alzheimer's disease is a disease. It's not a part of normal aging. So while we all may get a little more forgetful as we age, where are my car keys, where are my reading glasses, that's not disease. But when this forgetfulness progresses to the point of severity where you keep repeating the same questions, that's more likely to be Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is still a clinical judgment at this point in time. That means that the doctor takes a history from the person, a history from someone who knows the person well, does some mental status evaluations, maybe a few laboratory tests, and then comes to the clinical judgment. But doctors are pretty good. So if they follow the person longitudinally, they're correct that Alzheimer's is in fact the underlying brain disease 80 to 90% of the time. But there is no magical test right now. We're working on all these biomarkers, so imaging tests, spinal fluid tests, more sophisticated cognitive tests. So we're getting even better at making that clinical diagnosis, but it still is a clinical judgment.
What is Mount Kaala recognized for? Mount Kaala is the highest point on Oahu at 4,024 feet. There you have it. We hope we've inspired you to start your own planning for long-term care. I'm Brickwood Galuteria. Join me next week on another episode of Kupuna Power. Aloha.